Welcome back to NFTs Made Simple. Today, we're talking all about copyright law and NFTs and some of the problems that are solved and arise based on this emerging technology. Dragon's going to be out today, but that's okay. We're bringing in an expert in the industry. Hey, why don't you roll the intro and I'll tell you more. NFTs are changing the world, and change can feel complicated and scary. But listen, you don't need a computer science degree. You don't need to learn how to code. You just need practical skills to win.
If you are here, you are in the 1% of humans that are preparing for this major cultural shift. We're going to keep it fun. We're going to keep it light. We're going to make it practical. Welcome to NFTs Made Simple.
Just a reminder, we're not financial advisors. This is not financial advice, and you should do your own research.
Hey, let's get into it.
So today's guest is Robert Kain. He is a technology IP lawyer for nearly 40 years, I might add. He is the vice chair of the Florida Bar's newly formed Blockchain and Digital Assets Committee and former chair of the Bar's Computer Law Committee. He has authorized over a dozen law review articles in the computer field, and his current interests are NFTs, digital assets, and artificial intelligence. Robert is a partner of the Concept Law Group in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. You can reach him through the firm's website, conceptlaw.com. And as a quick disclaimer, any of Robert's discussion of NFTs, blockchain, and crypto is not intended to constitute legal advice. Instead, his discussion of today's topics is for general informational purposes only. If you have specific legal questions, please call him offline. There'll be a link below, and his phone number is listed at conceptlaw.com. All right, let's get into the episode. Enough mumbo jumbo. Let's talk turkey. Let's get into this episode with Robert. You're going to love it. A little bit longer than normal, but it's just when you start hearing all the different things that NFTs are already impacting, mind blown. All right, let's get into the episode. Robert, welcome to NFTs Made Simple.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice being here.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. We met at a wedding, and then both of our wives, their eyes started to glaze over, so we started going deep on NFTs.
Yes.
So I'm glad that we can actually sit here and go a little bit deeper. Yeah. You had some great insights as an attorney in the copywriting world.
Mm-hmm. I do.
And you had some great ideas. So I'm looking forward to break into that a little bit. But why don't we start here?
Okay.
Just sitting here chatting before the recording, you had mentioned that NFTs are a radical change.
Yes, I really believe that. I think it's the equivalent of when the iPhone was first introduced with a flat screen with icons rather than a keypad. Another radical change, and they really didn't know this was going to happen, is when they started putting cameras in iPhones. It really changed the consumer dynamic of how things were being used and why they were being used, and of course drove the purchase and consumption.
So why do you think NFTs are going to be that dramatic of a change?
Well, first off, they're relatively easy to make from a technology standpoint, and also they're extremely dynamic, so they can be applied in many, many instances. The blockchain, as you know, when you put something in the cell of a blockchain, it is considered to be immutable. In other words, it does not change. We're going to set aside issues regarding extreme hacking and things like that, but that's the way they are designed. So in a blockchain, you could have an access point, like a URL to a piece of artwork or song, or in blockchain cell, you could have what we call a smart contract, which is self-executing. A self-executing contract is sort of like a vending machine where you put in your money, you you make the selection, and out comes the output, the candy bar or whatever. So the smart contract can interact with other electronic systems, banking systems, data gathering systems.
But doesn't the blockchain almost invalidate banking systems? This is why there's this big push for crypto, and we don't need banks being the middleman anymore. We can just go direct to each other.
Well, they do. That is a popular conception that it might replace banks, but the problem with particularly crypto is that it takes a lot of energy to develop each block in that crypto, because every new purchaser has his or her own block showing ownership of the crypto, and you have proof of, which I believe is what Bitcoin is, and proof of stake, which I think is Ethereum.
Ethereum 2.0.
Right. So there is concern, particularly on coin, that it's each new coin owner is using a lot of electricity. I've heard stories like mid-sized towns in Denmark, they use that much. I'm a little bit skeptical about that, but
So I feel like the technology is probably going to continue to improve. I mean, like the Solana blockchain, for example, is less energy intensive than Ethereum, for example.
Yes, and that's one thing. But that's true that the technology, the processors will get faster, the data storage, the memory will get cheaper, and the heat problem seems to be a consistent problem, but at least manageable on a data center. And yes, the algorithms used to determine whether to mint each new block in a blockchain or a token in an NFT is continuing to be improved. But the blockchain is radical in my mind because, like I said, the technology is relatively easy. The programming is at least for content-based, like artwork and Top Shots, NFTs, is simpler than building your own website.
Wow, sure.
And I've actually had a client who had zero experience in that space, and he built his own NFT.
Wow.
So that
it's to me, an NFT, creating an NFT seems like otherworldly and so complicated. Why was it important for him to actually create an NFT? Like, what was the application?
Well, he had a very interesting business. In his business, and he's run this for like 20 years. He has a worldwide system of buyers who go into Chanel and Louis Vuitton and buy these $2,000 and $3,000 purses and shoes, and he would bring them back and sell them as genuine product in sort of, I think, Instagram. And what he wanted to do was incorporate a three-dimensional image of a genuine particular bag and sell the 3D image in an NFT when the purchaser also bought the hard goods, because he thought it would assist the buyer to resell the bag, because these bags are expensive and
It's another layer of value.
It's another layer of value. Right.
I like that. Well, and he also built into that NFT, I'm sure, some sort of perpetuity, right? So anytime that bag gets sold or the NFT gets resold.
We designed the contract to make sure that a buyer gave a warranty that they would always couple the 3D image with the physical item. Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And he was going to use it for watches and things like that, but only high-end luxury goods. So it was rather a unique type of NFT, not the types of NFTs that we see with Bored Apes and Babel, or I forget the gentleman's name who had a picture of 10,000 images.
Right, Doodles,
Yeah.
BeFriends,
Right.
all those different collections, which is cool. And I think when people hear NFTs, that's generally what they think. It's a JPEG. Why should I care?
That's true. Yes. Well, it's not really a JPEG. It is a URL that's locked in a cell in the blockchain, and the only way you can get access to that URL is if you own an NFT token or a blockchain token that gives you password permission into that blockchain. So,
But how does
so you have an access point. I think that's a better term. It's an access point rather than a URL.
I like that, where you can do airdrops and deliverables? And...
Yeah, and I think the lawyers in this bleeding edge space are starting to recognize that it's an access point, much like a ticket to a theater, or a concert, if you will. So if you buy a ticket to the concert, although Ticketmaster says you can't resell it, people do resell it,
No.
but they resell that one particular ticket,
Right.
And there's so it's access into something else. It's access into art, or it's access into music, just like access into music in a concert.
Sure. From a copyright standpoint, the question comes to me is like, what are the actual problems that these solve? In the internet age, it's so easy to copy and paste, to pretend to be something that you're not, to rip music off. I mean, that's a huge business, just ripping music off and then putting it into your YouTube videos, which can result in problems. But how How do NFTs solve these copyright problems?
Well, one of the things they provide is that the token owner of an NFT has ownership data associated with it. So remember what I said, that so when you are an owner of a token, it has some information regarding who you are. Now, it might be encrypted, it might be anonymous, but it has some solid ownership data. That's one reason, one thing. The other thing is that the content in the not the URL access point, but the actual artwork, if we're talking about art, can have a copyright notice on it. And so if we discover someone's ripped it off, whether it's by hacking an NFT token owner or it's by a nefarious token owner copying and pasting it on the internet, then we can trace it back most likely by comparing the image. And since we know what the owners are, and we know not only that, but we know when the owner of the NFT had access to that artwork URL, it's easier to track it. The other thing we can do in these blockchain formats is what's called digital rights management. So you can, when the owner of a token accesses that artwork again, you can have information written back into the blockchain indicating that the owner has taken it. And so, for example, let me give you an easier example rather than illegal copying. Let's say that Disney wants to sell tokens and permit only 10 viewings of its movie. Okay, so they can have, in the blockchain, they can have a smart contract that monitors which cycle you're on, whether you're on first showing or the 10th showing, and also where you're at in the movie itself, just like we see on Netflix and on Amazon Prime, where if you stop a movie, you can go back and look at it again. So and all this is enabled because the data in the cells of the blockchain are fixed. They're immutable. They don't change.
Right.
So in the long run, when we have more sophisticated, the current legal situation in NFTs is politely stated a mess. It's horrendous. I would not use it. This is a family show. But in the near term, in like another 2 or 3, the contract's going to be real. These DRMs, digital rights managements, are going to be baked in, and so you're actually going to see more artists get compensated for their work.
Yeah,
because they can see who it is. Now, the issue that we still have is enforcement. I mean, how do you have to pay a lawyer to go and sue those people who copy illegally and things like that. But that's a problem that we currently have, and we're just sort of working through it. There's copyright infringement litigation is pretty easy because it's what you see is what you get. So,
right, and so I mean that's the other one of the values of being on the blockchain is the transparency, but that almost seems to be a weakness if you're a bad actor out there, right? It's like, how do you actually, everything that you do, everything that you steal is going to be right on the blockchain.
Right. So it's not a question of transparency, it's a question of record keeping.
Okay. Yeah.
So other people who own tokens on a blockchain do not necessarily know who the other owners are.
Right.
Because the owner, in my view, correctly technologically built blockchain, the ownership of each token is going to be locked such that it's not going to be visible to the larger. So you don't necessarily want to know, you don't need to know who all the other owners are. Now, there's another application of blockchain technology, which is it's a DAO. It's a distributed autonomous organization.
Mm-hmm. Which we have an entire episode on, by the way.
Those are very complex. I'd rather not go there at this point in time. That has more to do with
basically what it means is there's not a central leader. It's everyone that owns one of the NFTs on the blockchain has an equal say.
It's a highly democratic decision-making society.
I like that.
Right. But because the blockchain can be built and these contracts put in place and the data is captured in an immutable record, that's why it's so dynamic. Any complex transaction that requires either multiple parties or multiple transactional steps to get a result can be built as a blockchain in order to memorialize and document what exactly happened. I'll give you an example. The example is that you and I are partners and we own a piece of real estate, but our partnership has blown up. We want to get rid of it. We don't like each other anymore. And so there's such bad will between us that we can't even agree on what price we're going to sell. So you build the blockchain that says, okay, if the sale goes through in 30 days, here's the split between you and I. If the sale goes through in 60 days, there's a lower threshold that the sale goes through. But because you and I don't get along, we are going to pre-sign the deed for sale. And that pre-signed deed for sale is locked into the blockchain and is not released until the closing date by the buyer. So you can imagine, now that's pretty simple economics, but you can imagine how that can be turned into something entirely different. For example, rather than using two partners who break up, think about a husband and wife who get divorced and are fighting over the sale of the house. So that's a good example of a really simple blockchain, but it greatly benefits society because it reduces conflict between two people in order to achieve a result, and the result being the sale of the property and distribution of the proceeds.
In this example, are you saying that the husband, the wife, the business partners are building their own blockchain or adding information to an existing blockchain?
It would be, well, it'd have to be built, but you can have a form, like for a family lawyer could build out a form blockchain and present it to one of his clients. And if the other it's not a client, but if the opposite party agrees, all they need to do is fill in, well, what is the price you're going to sell? How long do you need to sell it in? And what should be the difference in the sale price? And just pre-sign the deeds, and until the closing happens within that time frame, there's no transfer of the property.
And there's no arguments either because the agreement's already been if this, then that, right?
Yes.
So in this example, you're thinking that we'll call it the concept law group, for example.
Sure.
The concept law group would build their own blockchain for all the transactions and all the clients that they might work with over the years.
Yeah, it could be because the family divorce situation, because it happens so often, you don't reuse the blockchain, but you reuse the form of the blockchain.
Okay.
So, of course, you need a contract between the husband and the owner of the blockchain. If it's concept law group, that's fine. And you also need the wife to sign the contract saying that, yes, she's going to participate in the concept law group blockchain.
How do NFTs play into that? Are you giving an NFT to each party to prove?
Well, okay, the NFTs, you could add on to that concept that go back to the partnership rather than divorce because it makes more sense then. In a partnership breakup, you could permit one of the partners to fractionalize his result. So he could say, let's say I'm going to collect $500,000, but I need the money now because I'm going to launch a new restaurant or whatever. And so I'm going to go to my friends and say, listen, I'm going to collect $1 million. Here's the basic parameters. It's 30 days we get this, and in 60 days we get this other number, and 90 days we get a lesser amount of number. But I'm willing to sell 10% of whatever I get, and you'll own a token in this blockchain such that when it closes, if I only make one sale, when it closes, say it closes for $2 million, so I get $1 million as a partner. And then he automatically gets $100,000, and it's automatically done in the bank. As soon as the buyer's funds clears the bank, the blockchain distributes all the money, $1 million to you, 900,000 to me, and 100,000 to my friend who bought the fractionalized token from my result.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And I can tell that by speaking with you, Robert, there's so many different applications that haven't been invented yet.
Hey, what's up? Mark here. Just want to take you on a quick break with a resource I think is really going to help you. Some of the concepts that we're covering in the show sound really complicated and really technical. But listen, you don't need to code. You don't need to get a master's degree in computer science. All you need to do is have the right resources. We're going to make it simple. We're going to make it easy. I've got a link below. Go to www.nftsmadesimple.com. That's nftsmadesimple.com. You're going to get a free cheat sheet there. It's 100% free. What are you waiting for? Go get the cheat sheet. We're going to break down some of the key definitions in ways that are really practical and really simple. Go to nftsmadesimple.com right now to get your free cheat sheet. That's nftsmadesimple.com. All right, let's get back into the show.
Quick funny story. I was up in North Carolina on a family trip a few weeks ago, and we're all sitting around the campfire. We're making s'mores. And the topic of NFTs came up, probably because I mentioned it, because and everyone's looking at me like, Mark, you're crazy. No one's going to buy it. I said, listen, within 5 years, all of you are going to own NFTs. What do you think? Bolt, what do you think about that prediction?
I don't think they're all going to own NFTs, but I think they will all participate in some type of blockchain transaction. I think NFTs are going to be very, very popular in the creative community. So your podcast is a creative community. If you get enormously famous, maybe you want to start charging and limit, like you could release 3 of your podcasts over like a 30-day period for X numbers of dollars of subscription and a different amount and such like that. Mm-hmm. So, I think it's going to be a great benefit to all the creators. So you have artists, you have musicians, you have audio-visual works. Top Shots is a really good example of, I think it's like a 10-second clip of a 10-second clip of super performing shots on baskets by professionals. I think moving art is going to be really, really important. Moving art is instead of just a static image, you have slight movement in it. So again, you have like a 15 or 20 second clip of moving art. I also think long term, there's going to be, instead of framed art in people's homes, you're actually going to see flat screen displays that are mounted on the wall. And instead of just looking at one piece of art forever, you could have a rotating cycle of like maybe 20 Van Goghs.
Sure.
That change once a week or once every 2 or 3 days. So every time you walk into your house, you get the same feeling, but wait a minute, there's something new and different there.
I could see all those pictures on all the walls changing based on your mood too, because you've got a watch that's got your blood pressure going. And it's like, you need some calming images today.
Well, that transitions into artificial intelligence, which is that's really my long-term goal of trying to a legal structure regarding artificial intelligence. But yes, it's true. You could have mood changes and things like that. It depends whether you want to change in your life or whether you like consistency. And that's a really, really personal decision.
Sure.
So, but because blockchains are so simple and one of the important things about blockchains and NFTs is the platform that it's being put on. OpenSeas is one of the largest platforms for NFTs now, and I'm concerned that OpenSeas might all of a sudden just stop.
Yeah.
And then what happens to all the blockchains that are on there? Because you can think of OpenSeas as a platform, just like Amazon. So Amazon is a sales platform, and anyone who wants to sell on it, can make their own images and pricing structure and shipping. And Amazon just collects whatever they collect. And that's what OpenSeas is doing. But we have to be concerned, particularly if we're representing artists, creative people, what's going to happen if OpenSeas just collapses?
Yeah.
Or gets hacked into? And the same thing is true regarding cryptocurrency and wallets.
Right.
So now you probably can get some insurance against hacking, but we're in the legal community, we're more concerned about the long-term viability and stability of some of these platforms.
Yeah, well, a huge hack of like Coinbase or OpenSea, to your point, would create some tidal waves in the Web3 community.
Yes, exactly. So, there is that concern, whether it's a wallet that you're holding your cryptocurrency in, or whether it's the platform that you build the blockchain on. And we haven't really, from the lawyer's perspective, we haven't really figured out how to correct that. Now, I imagine that in an NFT blockchain, you can have a backup, but that's going to be difficult because every time you have a backup, then you have a security issue again.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Some of the and you have to realize that the law notoriously is about 10 years behind technology. In this particular situation where blockchains, although blockchains have been around for about 10 years, they've only become very important economically over the last like 2 or 3 years. And so the lawyers haven't figured out all the issues that might be associated, and so that's a concern. The hacking concern happens in NFTs regarding not utility tokens, but loot. They call them loot. In other words, they've built blockchain NFTs where, say you have 1,000, but if you're a purchaser of number 842, you get a bonus on the gaming platform that has it. And the nefarious programmers have figured out how to run programs that opens up all those tokens and discovers what a token is the loot.
So which one has that special feature built in?
And as best that I can tell, because they're such low value and they're primarily used in a gaming type of business, there's been no large outcry about problems in that type of security. But that gives you
certainly will come, though.
Yeah, but that gives you a sense that, just because you build the blockchain chain, you still have to be sensitive to what type of security you have and how easily that security can be obliterated. And that goes directly to what platform you're on.
Sure.
Okay.
And by platform, you mean on the Ethereum?
Ethereum or the OpenSeas or whatever. In Amazon's sales platform, I know there's counterfeit people who make imitations.
Right.
But I cannot recall that the Amazon sales platform itself has been hacked into and serious sales theft have occurred. It's because they have good security. That's the bottom line. But that's also a topic that's really beyond my recognition and experience. All I know is that we have to be concerned about it, and dependent upon the value that you're talking about. Like, go back to my sale of the real estate that we're selling for $2 million, and let's say that we believe we can sell it in a maximum of 90 days. So you have a short window. Although it's a relatively high money value, it seems to me to be reasonable that we could find insurance for that entire process. We can also employ for security the high level of data security that the banks have, which, by the way, comes out of, I think, Massachusetts. Massachusetts has some guidelines as to the type of security. So anyway, but we have to be concerned about that. If we're just selling art, an access point to that art, that's, yes, the artist is getting ripped off, but it's not crushing the economics. They're not stealing that $2 million.
Right. Well, I appreciate you're like leaning into this, Robert. As the technology evolves, as the technology changes, we're going to need new solutions. I think about the attorney and the copywriting, which is what you focus on here at Concept Law Group. I think about the accounting and how that's managed. Obviously, cybersecurity and theft is a big concern. There's a lot of things, that they're going to come up, which before we end the episode here, I want to talk a little bit about where we are.
Okay.
So we're down here in sunny South Florida, although if you're watching this on YouTube, it's not quite a sunny day today. But so we're in Fort Lauderdale, right? Which is, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach, Miami specifically starting to be dubbed the tech capital, the crypto paradise. Forget Silicon Valley, forget Dubai. It's happening in Miami. What are your thoughts about that and how that might change the landscape here in the South Florida area?
Well, recently we know, like the past 9 months, real estate has expanded, and we see, I believe, a lot of technical people leaving the big cities, New York, San Francisco, and coming down here because the cost of living is lower here. We might argue about that.
Well, it's hard to change.
Right.
There's state tax benefits.
Right. But mainly that's a recognition of working remotely.
Right.
So as for why South Florida might become a hub for blockchain and NFTs, part of it is that we have a great entertainment business down here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, literally, people come down here. If you set aside the real estate industry in South Florida, entertainment is number one. So entertainment, movies, sports, restaurants, the beach, free entertainment, can't beat that.
Sure.
And so I think that's part of the draw, and because it is primarily driven by younger people like yourself, they like to go out and be entertained and be part of the entertainment.
Well, part of what Mayor Suarez is doing in Miami too, he's like announcing, putting his stake in the ground, saying we're here. It's going to be NFTs. You think about Wynwood, and these different.
Well, I think I believe what happens is at some point in time, there is enough people in a location that it starts building upon itself.
Sure.
And we might be there. I say we might be there because I remember in the early 2000s, they were saying this was going to be like Silicon Beach because of all the internet companies that are coming down here. Well, it was a nice wish, but it really didn't happen. So it's very hard for me to say that this area is really going to become the NFT capital of the world. It could be, because what we see, this is what I know, as compared to non-U.S. locations. The U.S. locations are more stable. We have more consistent rule of law. We have the ability to move quickly through the court system, and it's honest, open, and transparent, unlike almost any other place in the world. Even Europe. If you go to court in Europe, it takes much, much longer than it does here in the United States. And I know that if you're involved in litigation, I know people think, well, it takes a long time in the U.S., but it's nothing compared to most of the rest of the world. And the judiciary is very honest and pretty much incorruptible. Very, very few judges are corrupted. So you have that. And you also have laws that are reasonably prospective. I'm on a committee now that's going to try and draft a law for Florida where the banks can actually put a lien on your digital assets. So in other words, let me explain what I mean by that. So when you buy a car and you get money from the bank puts a lien on your title and they record that lien with the DMV, Florida Secretary of State. Well, that process is called a secured transaction. So you can't sell the car and give someone else the title without notifying the bank and the bank being paid. Well, we have the same problem with digital assets, except there's no recognized legal structure. And that's what the committee is going to be working on this year.
Interesting.
And I'm on the leader of the task force it's called UCC Article 12, Secure Transactions for Digital Assets. We'll see if it goes through, but it's worth a try, because if it does, then yes, I think the South Florida and Florida in general is going to become a mecca, because then the banks and Wall Street and investment people will have trust that there's this legal structure that they make sure they are paid if they loan money on your cryptocurrency or on your NFT artwork or whatever.
Right.
So it establishes a legal framework for the lenders, the creditors.
Very interesting. And obviously, people like yourself, Robert, leading the way for the South Florida and the world. How soon do you think we're going to be putting home titles on NFTs? I
think they're doing it now in Pinellas County.
I thought, I read that up and said, which is pretty cool.
If you think about, or maybe people don't think about this, but if you own a piece of real estate, your title on your paper is actually, when you buy a piece of real estate, it's actually scanned and it's put in a database on a county level. And that database is generally considered immutable. So one can say that the existing title ownership databases is very, very similar to blockchain.
Yeah.
Now, there is wrinkles in that, but that's a fair statement. It's very, very similar. So to put the real estate title on a blockchain is it's probably overkill. Okay. But
home title theft is a big problem.
Right. Well, there is title theft. At least that's what I hear on the radio. I don't know. We don't practice real estate, so I don't know how prevalent it is. But as far as I know, it's not very prevalent.
Yeah, I got a phone call from a robot today telling me your home title is under attack.
It's under attack.
Click this button. Yeah.
Right. It is possible, but I don't know if blockchain is actually going to correct that, because if there's a lot of money involved in any particular blockchain. So your blockchain is actually your chain of title, going back to all the way from when the King of Spain sold Florida or gave Florida to, I guess, the United States. So you can actually go back. So every person who had that parcel of land, you could find it. If the land is that valuable, there's always a possibility that there could be a hacker that hacks into the blockchain and changes the title, which is no different than what's happening now, where they go and they take a scan. They get one of your earlier ownership where you've signed something, and they take a scan of it, and they PDF put that your signature on a new title, and they file it.
Yeah.
So, but that's a problem for the county recorder's office that we just don't get into.
Fair. Well, I know you do a lot of things, Robert. What's the best way for people to connect with you to learn more about how your copywriting legal services can help?
Probably through our website, conceptlaw.com, and it's Robert Kain, Kain. So I'm always, and we have a pretty decent internet presence, the law group here. We do all forms of intellectual property, registration of copyrights, contract work involving it, litigation, patent, trademark, copyright, and computer law. I've worked in the computer field for so long, I don't tell how many people I work with. But I do tell them this. I started with General Electric in the 80s, and one of my first projects was drafting a patent application to control a nuclear reactor using the laws of thermodynamics. So I'll just leave it there, and I've done everything: bicycles, jet engines, computer programs. But generally, 30-40% of my time has been computers throughout these many decades. Awesome. I love it. It's great. The clients always are generally optimistic, unless they're facing litigation, which no one likes. But it's a good field. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, not going anywhere. I appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your busy day to share some of these insights and what's happening in this new Web3 world. Yeah. Appreciate it, Robert.
I don't like Web3, by the way. I think labels get thrown around too easy. It's fair. It's better to be called either blockchain or NFT, something like that. Now the metaverse, I think, is a reasonable phrase to use, but that's a whole different topic. Maybe next time we'll get into the metaverse and what to do and why it's important or not,
sure,
the type of entertainment it is.
Well, the fans and I are definitely going to be looking forward to round 2, where we can get into the metaverse and some of the copyright issues that pop up there. Robert, thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Nice being here.
Listen, thanks for listening to the episode today. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to give a special thanks to Robert in his time and his work with the Florida Bar's Blockchain and Digital Assets Committee. It gives both myself and you, the viewer, boatloads of data information about the blockchain, about NFTs. And just as a reminder, Robert is a partner at the Concept Law Group in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. You can reach him at conceptlaw.com if you have any more questions or you want to go deeper. All right, with all that said, go out, take the action, and stay awesome. Dragon and I will catch you here next time on NFTs Made Simple. Peace.